What events happened on Nibiru prior to the Anunnaki coming to Earth, creating humans, and harvesting Earth's rich gold supplies to fix their depleting ozone layer? Why was Earth the chosen destination of the Anunnaki, when, with their technologically advanced spacecraft and machinery, they could have gone anywhere in the galaxy and mined for gold? After the post-war nuclear devastation, the destruction of Nibiru appeared to be imminent. One question that comes to mind is, how many times throughout Therefore, peace between the warring factions of the North and South was deemed imperative. The first king to be selected during the new era of the peace treaty on Nibiru was a reputed warrior king from the North by the name of An. His bride from the South, a warrior queen in her own right, was named Antu. The law of the land regarding successorship during those times was that the firstborn son to the king would be his legal heir. An and Antu's firstborn son was named Anki. Anki unfortunately never married, and he bore no heirs to the throne before his untimely demise. Then, An and Antu's middle son Anib supplanted Anki after his death and became the new heir to Nibiru's throne. Anib espoused his younger brother Inuru's daughter Ninib, and the lineage of the royal bloodline of Nibiru continued through their firstborn son Anshargal. Anshargal wed his half-sister Kishargal. However, Kishargal did not bear Anshargal's firstborn son. Instead, Anshargal's firstborn son was born to him by an unnamed concubine, and they named their son Alam. A short time thereafter, Kishargal, Anshargal's official spouse, finally bore him a son, and they named their son Anshar. Now this is the point in the Anunnaki story where the royal succession to Nibiru's throne began getting a little chaotic. Once Anshar was born, Kishargal immediately began lobbying for an amendment to the old law of succession. She argued that her son Anshar should be Kishargal's legal heir, since she too was a royal lineage, and their son therefore had a double portion of the original king An's blood running through his veins. Although Elam was indeed Anshargal's firstborn son, his mother was not of royal lineage. She was a mere concubine. So Ki-Shargal argued, how then could Elam, who was born of a concubine and was only of half royal heritage, precede her son Anshar, who was of royal heritage on both sides, to the throne of Nibiru? She relentlessly petitioned the elders and nobles of Nibiru, and after much deliberation, it was decided that a change was indeed imminent in regard to the right of succession, and that change was that, from that day forward, the new rightful and legal heir to the throne of Nibiru had to not only be the firstborn son of the king, but he also had to be a firstborn son of the incumbent king by his half-sister. It was also during this time, and as a result of the casualties of the long-standing war between the North and South, that many men had lost their lives in battle. The population on Nibiru was therefore extremely disproportionate. Women outnumbered men tremendously. So, to resolve the population problem, Anshargal delivered a new edict that allowed for men to have more than one wife. This edict, by flight or fancy, sort of repeated itself hundreds of thousands of years later amongst humans, when Prophet Muhammad of Arabia and the early Muslims adopted a similar edict when the male population was depleted due to their wars with various adversaries as well. Are we repeating events that occurred on Nibiru eons ago? In any event, Anshargal and Ki-Shargal's son Anshar went on to inherit the throne instead of Elam, and as was tradition, he went on to marry his half-sister, Kishar. Their son, their firstborn son, was named Enshar, and he would later succeed Anshar on Nibiru's throne. Enshar went on to marry his half-sister, Ninshar, but unfortunately, they didn't have any children together. Instead, Enshar's firstborn son was by another unnamed concubine, and they named their son Du'uru. During the reign of Du'uru, everything concerning the legal rights of succession unexpectedly changed. It was during these times that Du'uru decided to forsake the long-standing traditional rights of succession and marry a woman who was not of royal blood. Du'uru married a woman named Da'uru, but she was not his half-sister. She was just a common girl whom he had loved since his youth. Sort of like the stories of our recent past, like when the Greek Pyramus wed Thisbe, or when King Edward IV married Elizabeth Woodville, or when Archduke Leopold Ferdinand married Wilhelmine Adamovich of Austria. The story seems to repeat itself over and over again throughout history. Ironically, Du'uru and Da'uru wound up having no children together. Was it the result of karma? Or was it just the way things happened to turn out? Whatever it was or wasn't, the one fact that remained was that the royal lineage that once held Nibiru's throne for eons was in serious jeopardy of becoming obsolete. It was also during this time that Da'uru found a little boy at the palace gate and brought him into the palace. Du'uru and Da'uru wound up falling in love with the boy and adopted him as their own. They named him Lama. It's intriguing, but this is another Anunnaki story with striking similarities in human history. Wasn't Moses too taken in by Pharaoh's daughter and later adopted into the royal family? Nonetheless, it was during Lama's subsequent reign as king of Nibiru that the royal seed of the first king An no longer sat on the throne. Another interesting point of note is that during these times, pestilences and afflictions of the post-nuclear war times continued to persist. The previous wars between the North and South were never imagined to have had such long-lasting effects. Meanwhile, Some of the other bloodline relatives of An, who weren't officially counted in the line of succession but were nonetheless of royal blood, began to get in an uproar over Lama's unorthodox rise to the throne. They figured they had more rights to the throne than an adopted outsider. One such malcontent descendant of An's was named Alalu. And on one uneventful day, Alalu, along with other disgruntled members of An's royal lineage, performed a coup d'etat and raided the palace. In the end, Alalu wound up causing Lama to fall to his death, and the throne of Nibiru was officially vacated. With the throne now up for grabs, a few of An's descendants decided to jockey for the open position. Alalu was the first to present his case to the High Council and elders of Nibiru, claiming that he was a direct descendant of An through his ancestor Alam, the true firstborn son of Anshargal. He claimed that he was one of An's direct descendants through An's grandson Anshargal, and he also claimed that during those earlier days in Nibiru's unified kingdom of North and South, Anshargal's firstborn son and the rightful heir according to the original law of succession of that time was by a concubine, and that son's name was Alalu's ancestor Alam. Alalu's argument was persuasive enough for the elders and High Council to consider him as the forerunner to be Nibiru's next king. But just before his election, another of Anu's descendants stepped forward to take his claim at the throne. His name was Anu, and he claimed that his connection to the first king An was even greater than that of Alalu's. He claimed that his great ancestor was Inama, a firstborn son of An and Antu's third and youngest son Iniru, by his half-sister Minmuru. He therefore claimed that his blood was directly related to An and not via a concubine. It was a compelling argument. In the end, things began to get unsettled because some wanted Anu to be Nibiru's next king, while others were in favor of Alalu. So to ease tensions and prevent things from escalating out of control, Alalu proposed that since he and Anu were indeed blood relatives in both of royal heritage, he should be crowned as Nibiru's next king and Anu be selected as his successor. And to smooth matters over even more, Alalu even suggested that his daughter be espoused to Anu's firstborn son, Ea, who is better known to us as Enki. Anu agreed to the terms and conditions, and Alalu became Nibiru's next king, while simultaneously restoring An's royal bloodline back to the throne. Unfortunately, Alalu's reign as Nibiru's king would be short-lived. During his reign, conditions on the planet worsened. Famine and hunger reverberated throughout the land. Expeditions throughout the universe in search of gold were conducted, only to have none of the ships ever return. There were whisperings in the land where the Anunnaki began questioning Alalu's ability to rule. Things had gotten so bad that it escalated to the point where Anu challenged Alalu to a traditional hand-to-hand combat contest for the throne. Like the contest between Chadwick Boseman and Michael B. Jordan in the movie Black Panther, when they fought for the throne of Wakanda. The winner of the battle between Alalu and Anu would thenceforth be the undisputed king of Nibiru. And as was tradition, they both were stripped down to their birthday suits and the battle commenced. Anu wound up winning the match, and Alalu, fearing karma, that he would receive the same fate as Lama before him, commandeered one of the spaceships and secretly jettisoned off the planet. From earlier research conducted while the Anunnaki were scouring the universe for gold when Alalu was the incumbent king, Alalu was privy to some secret intel. He knew that the safest place he would be able to hide from the wrath of Anu would be beyond what the Anunnaki affectionately called the Hammered Bracelet, or asteroid belt, towards the inner planets where no Nibiruan had ever gone and lived to talk about it. Through some very strategic maneuvering, Alalu managed to make it through the asteroid belt and finally land on Earth. Once he landed, he was awestruck by the beauty of this planet. He then began spanning the planet's surface with the ship's multispectral imaging and thematic mapping technologies, and unexpectedly discovered that there was an endless supply of gold here. He then imagined himself being a hero back on Nibiru, for he would be the one written in the annals of their history as the savior of the planet. But more so than anything else, Alalu wanted to be reinstated as Nibiru's king. So he messaged Nibiru on the ship's radio device and informed them of his findings. No one believed he was able to traverse the asteroid belt because it hadn't been done before, nor did they believe he found an abundant supply of gold. They wanted proof, and that was the sticking point. But before Alalu would prove his claims and reveal his coordinates, he had a few requisite demands. His number one demand was that he would reveal his location and route of travel if, and only if, he be reinstated as king of Nibiru. The council and elders would then assemble to gauge the truthfulness of Alalu's claims. And before anyone would even consider any of Alalu's outlandish claims, his claims had to first be verified. This was a unanimous decision, and the council's findings were then radioed back to Alalu. Alalu went on to provide the necessary proof of the gold he found by transmitting the results of his probing and thematic scanning through the ship's deep space communication network back to Nibiru. Once transmitted, he again demanded to be reinstated as king. The council deliberated further and decided that Anu's firstborn son Enki, who was espoused to Alalu's daughter Damkina, would lead the charge of an exploratory group that would travel to Earth and substantiate Alalu's claims. So, Enki was commissioned by the High Council to go to Earth to substantiate Alalu's claims of gold and hopefully ease tensions between Alalu and Anu. Curious to know what happened when Enki and the first group of Anunnaki landed on Earth approximately 432,000 years ago? Then please feel free to tune into our next submission in the What If God Did Not Create Man? A Beginner's Guide to Understanding the Anunnaki Series Part 4. Again, we humbly thank you in advance for allowing us to share our perspectives on the Anunnaki with you. We strongly suggest that you preserve your sovereign rights as unique manifestations of the Creator of all, and take from this message only that which resonates with the core of your being. We send you all an abundance of love, light, and life. Once again, this is the House of Melchizedek, signing off. Remember, you cannot spell universe without you and I. So until our next journey through the mind together, peace.